Hi all. After finishing the cell, the fundamental unit of life, we are moving to the next chapter, that is tissues. So if there is any doubt from that first chapter, you can comment wherever I have posted the video or below this wherever I am posting the video for both cell and tissues. So a cell and tissue both are interconnected. That means cell is the basic structural fundamental unit of life. So without cell there is no tissue, without tissue there is no organ, without organ there is no system. So now in this chapter we are going to study about what are the different types of tissues present in living system, both in plants and animals. So we have to study it separately. Before entering to the tissues, before entering to the detail, we have to know what is a tissue. The word tissue means, or it is originated from a French term known as tissuer, Tissuer. I hope so. It is Tissuer. I don't remember exactly. Tissuer, which means woven. Woven means whenever we are stitching, like that, when some persons, when they removed a small area and observed under the microscope, they found like that. So from that the term tissue is came to exist, and there is no relation between woven and what we are going to study, but they have not changed the name. So if you want to give a definition for a tissue is we can say that a tissue can be defined as a group of physically linked cells and associated intracellular substances that is specialized for a particular function or functions. Remember, a tissue can be defined as a group of physically linked cells and its associated intercellular substances that is specialized for a particular function or functions. It can be for a function or functions. Any one of that can be called as a tissue. And the first person who introduced this term tissue, his name is Xavier Bichet in 1801, and the study of tissues is known as histology. And what is the importance of studying these tissues? For example, in if you see in in human system, we have a lot of system that is functions inside: digestive system, cardiac system, nervous system. It is very difficult to find a cell, that means in front of the eyes it is very difficult to study. But if you study a tissue, if a tissue is performing well, it under the microscope, if you study the tissue, we can understand that if the tissue is functioning well, we can understand that the cell is also functioning well. That means as a fundamental unit of life. But nowadays, with the help of very good microscope, electron microscope, SEM and TEM, it is possible to study in a cellular level, even subcellular level also it is possible to study. But in earlier times we don't have any such things. So that is why the tissues came to the importance. And the tissue level of, we can study tissue level cancers, what is infecting to the cancers, biopsy. Under the biopsy they are observing this, while observing these cancerous tissues. So if a tissue is defected, or if tissue is spreading very fast, it means that cell is dividing very fast. If a cell is dividing unwantedly, it causing cancer. So these are the things nowadays in the modern era we are used. So we will go one by one. First we will discuss what are the tissues present inside the plant, then what are the tissues present inside the animal, what is its function, other things we will study. So inside the plant there are two types of tissues are there. Mainly there are two types of tissues. One is known as meristematic tissue and another one is known as permanent tissue. These are the main type of tissues that is present inside the plant. And meristematic tissues means tissues have the capacity to regenerate into any part of a plant. They are known as meristematic tissues. And permanent tissues means they don't have the capacity to for the further divisions. So they are known as permanent. They will never divide further. So there are in between there are also some cases are there that we'll study there. So the person who coined this term Meristem, his name is Carl William von Negley. He's the first person who coined this term Meristem. So these names are asked in some of the exams, not in CBSE point of view. Some of the exams, if you are preparing, so this will be very useful. So if you just think about a meristematic tissues we can find anywhere in the plant which is growing. We can find meristematic tissue in the root tip. We can see meristematic tissues in the tip of a branch, tip of a leaf. Sorry, not tip of the leaf, tip of the branch, tip of the root. The middle portion of the bark, stem. All the areas we can see this meristematic tissues. So these meristematic tissues are further divided into three. So if you see in this diagram is copied exactly from the CBSE. CBSE also is given a same thing. When we see this meristematic tissue, these meristematic tissues are of three types in plant mainly. One is known as the apical meristematic tissue, intercalary meristematic tissue, and lateral meristematic tissue. So it is very easy to understand. Apical meristematic tissues are present to the tip of a plant, and intercalary meristems are present in the growing tip of growing tip of a stem and roots. They are present. That is the apical meristematic tissue. And if you are seeing about the intercalary meristematic tissue, it is present at the base of the nodes. And if you see the lateral meristematic tissue, it can mainly find on a one plane. You can see that a plane in upside direction like that. If we can see this meristematic tissue. So what is its function? What are these meristematic tissues are doing? So if you first think about the apical meristematic tissue, apical meristematic tissue is present in both. If it is present on the tip of a stem, it is known as the stem apical tissue, apical meristematic tissue. And if it is present inside the tip of a root, it is known as the root apical meristematic tissue. So what is the main function of this apical meristematic tissue is, this tissue helps the plant to increase in height lengthwise, and in the root also lengthwise it can grow very deep. So this is the main function. So if the plant has to increase the height or in length, apical meristematic tissue must be active. If it is inactive, it can't increase in height. In lateral meristematic tissue, so when we are coming to the lateral meristematic tissue, this lateral meristematic tissue will be found in a one plane, and it will help to increase in diameter, increase in diameter. And in intercalary meristematic tissue, it is found in between the nodes of a leaf base. So this is also helping to increase the size of internodes from which these branches can arise. So intercalary meristems are responsible for the growth of branches. Lateral meristematic tissues are responsible for increase in the diameter, and apical meristem is responsible for the increasing the height of the plant, or it otherwise it is increasing in length. So these are the main meristematic tissues which we found inside this plants. And when we take talk about this meristematic tissues, they are very elastic in nature. They are very elastic in nature and they are arranged very compactably, and they are very rich in cytoplasm, very rich in cytoplasm, and it contains only few vacuoles. Why they are containing only vacuoles, or sometimes there will be no vacuoles? If vacuoles are there, the division will be very difficult, very difficult, because vacuoles means empty space. Empty space, it is not possible to divide, because they have to maintain the ploidy, that means the chromosomal structure of a particular cell. So vacuoles will be very difficult to divide. So there may be a vacuole or there may be no vacuole inside the meristematic tissue. So some of the meristematic tissues we can see in all oval shape, or a polygonal shape, or a rectangular in shape. Any of these shapes are present. Some of the meristematic tissues may have a large vacuole. So if vacuoles are present, what will happen? They can store some food. So if the no vacuoles are there, they don't need to store anything. So if they store any food, that means it will increase in diameter. So the lateral meristematic tissues may have few vacuoles, but this apical meristematic tissues, most of the times they don't have any vacuoles, because they need increase in height. In the lateral meristematic tissues, if the vacuoles are present, they can store some food materials, so that increase in grit of the plant is possible. Is it clear? And there will be no intercellular space if vacuoles are present. So these are the main thing that we have to know. Apart from that, when we see from a plant from outside point of view, this plant will be having mainly three types of tissue system will be there. One is known as to the top, which is called as the epidermis. Number two is called as the vascular tissue, which is helped to conduct the water. That means in order to transport water from one place to another and to carry the produce food material from one part of the plant to another. Number three is known as ground tissue, which have the capacity to store the nutrients and manufacturing, that means photosynthesis and other things. So these are the three types of tissue systems that is present, and this plant tissue system is originated either from a meristematic tissue or from a permanent tissue. So that will go one by one in the coming class. I think the basics and the beginning is understood by you. If there is any doubt, please comment below wherever I am posting the video. Thank you. Next to the moving in the tissues in plants. Now we will be discussing about the permanent tissues, that is meristem. First it was the meristematic tissues. Meristematic tissues are tissues which have the capacity to generate into any part of the plant, and after one part has moved, any one of the meristems have got a different function, they started to differentiate means they will concentrate into one's particular function with some particular structure. Like that, one arrowed cell is known as the permanent tissue, and this permanent tissue means they will never further divide, their growth is over with that. And these permanent tissues are divided into two. One is known as the simple permanent tissue and the complex tissues. Simple permanent tissues means these are the tissues which have few layers, and they are responsible for the packing of tissues, that means protection and other things they are taking care. And this the simple permanent tissues have different functions. In some cases the simple permanent tissues uh, have cells within the cell wall. They are living cells, and they are usually loosely packed. These are the main characteristic, that means they are living, they are loosely packed. Since they have space in between, what will happen, they, apart from protection, they can further do some other functions. For example, it may have some chlorophyll inside that. If the chlorophyll is present, it is known as chlorenchyma. And sometimes these simple permanent tissues may can hold air inside that. Especially these type of tissues are found in the plants that lives in water, otherwise known as hydrophytes. They and they help in the buoyancy means they help them to float on the surface. So those type of parenchymatous tissues are known as erenchyma. Apart from that, there are two more. One is known as collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Collenchymatous tissues are tissues which have cell wall thickenings are there. This B diagram is of that. And cell wall thickening will be there, nucleus will be present, and they will be having vacuoles, that is empty space in between. And they are responsible for the flexibility of the plant. For example, if you have seen the stalk of the leaf, the stalk of the leaf is made up of collenchymatous tissues. That is the reason why whenever the wind is blowing, the leaf will bend to the direction to which the wind is blowing, but the leaf will never pluck off from that particular branch. So those type of tissues, that stalk of the leaf, are made up of collenchymatous tissues, and these are the main function of this collenchymatous cells. That is, they will give flexibility to the particular living tissues. And next one, it is known as the sclerenchymatous tissues. These sclerenchymatous tissues are very hard, and they are very rigid. They are very rigid. Since they are very rigid and hard, they are used for they are used for thickening of any. For example, the best example goes to this is the coconut husk. Coconut husk is made up of sclerenchymatous, and they are very dead. They are very really dead. Since they are dead, they are hard and stiff. They can give an extra protection to the living tissues. And these sclerenchyma, since they are hard, thick, and they are weightless, that means they don't have much weight, but they are very stiff and hard. This is one of the main reason why these coconuts have the capacity to float on the surface of water. This is one among the reason why they are floating on the surface of the water. And this sclerenchyma can give extra protection to the vascular bundles, veins of the leaf, and it can provide strength to the different parts of the plant. So these are the main functions of this sclerenchyma. Apart from this simple permanent tissue, and most of the simpler permanent tissues forms the epidermis of any type of a living plant cell. And this epidermis of a living plant cell protects the plant from the invasion of any type of bacteria they will be having. To protect that, they will be having secretions, waxy secretions on it, and it will don't allow much water to go in. That also will be provided by that waxy coating. And they will protect the plant from the loss of water, invasion of parasites, fungus, and other things they are helping. And on this epidermis, for example, epidermis of a leaf, on the epidermis of a leaf there are small pores are there. Those pores are called as stomata, and these stomatas are kidney shaped cells. They are protected by guard cells. They are protected by guard cells, and they are very much useful for the exchange of gases. And transpiration is one among the process that takes place to the stomata. This is the in order to stop the excess transpiration, that means the in order to stop the excess of the transpiration, the stomatas will be closed during the mid sunny days, that means after 12, and most of the time stomatas will be open early in the morning and late in the evening. Wherever the high temperature is there, the stomatas will be closed, and more transpiration will be there with a high temperature and a mild wind, mild breeze. If mild breeze and high temperature is there, there will be more loss of water. Those times the stomatas will be closed, and stomatas are the only area through which the exchange of gas takes place. That means carbon dioxide will go inside for the process of photosynthesis, and oxygen will be comes out after the process of photosynthesis. These exchange of gases also takes place in the through stomata, and these stomatal pores can be seen on the epidermis. Apart from that, these root epidermal tissues are responsible for the absorption of water. They absorbs more water, and they have some hair like projections from the main root, from the taproot system, and these hair like projections will give more surface area, and it will hold the soil, surrounding soil. Since it will hold the surrounding soil, they can absorb more water, water. And in some cases these desert plants epidermis has very thick waxy coating will be there on the surface, and these waxy coating is responsible for the they are known as cutins, and they are responsible, they will protect this plant from loss of water. That means they work as a waterproof agent. And apart from this outer layer of these trees like cork, bark, they all are epidermal tissues, and they are dead, and they are very compactly arranged, and they in between them, for example, if you want to get a cork, that means the outer epidermal tissues of this plant cells bark will die, and in between this bark gaps, suberin, a chemical will be secreted, and this tuberin will make them very hard and impervious to gas and water. That is the main reason why they are using this as a cork, especially for the packing of wines. They are using cork cells, and it doesn't mean that the cork cells don't have holes. They have natural holes, very narrow natural holes, very narrow and natural holes. Through that, the fermentation or after fermentation of wine or any other things, gases will be put, these gases will be exchanged through that. Along with that, they will give a very stiff covering. This is the reason why they are using cork to close the wine bottles, and these corks are made up of from the epidermis, that is simple permanent tissues. So these are the main things you have to study from this. In the notes I have given in a very small content, and all the diagram that is present inside this textbook are important. These can be asked for your exams, they may ask you to draw, or they may ask you to identify the diagrams. Then you have to write some characters about this. That's all. They don't ask anything more from this. So please go through this, and if you have any doubts, come back to me by giving any comment. And next class we will be moved through this complex tissue, that is xylem and phloem, which is responsible for conducting water. After that we will move through these animal tissues. Thank you, and further any doubts, please comment below. Hi all, the next part we are going to the complex tissues. Complex means they are not made up of one type of tissues, they are made up of different types of tissues are there. So inside the complex tissues, the best example what we can study is xylem and phloem. This xylem and phloem they are known as the conductive tissues, that means or vascular bundles, because they have the capacity to take food water from one direction to another direction. One will carry the nutritions, that is the water and other thing, from down to up, bottom to top, and other one will run from the top, that is from the leaf, through the other parts of the plant. And the structure that carries water from the ground, that is from the bottom to the top, we will call it as xylem. And the structure that carries prepared food material, that is from the leaf to the other parts of the plant, that particular structure is known as phloem. These structures are made up of complex tissues, that means they are not made up of one type of tissues what we have seen before in the permanent. So if you see this xylem is made up of 3 different types of tissues, and all these tissues together we will call it as xylem. And the word xylem means wood. And if you see here, this xylem, you can see the diagram also. The xylem is made up of 3 different types of tissues. One is known as tracheids, another one is known as vessels, another one is known as parenchyma, that is known as the xylem parenchyma. And when you see this tracheids, the word tracheids means something looks like trachea, which is present inside the respiratory system, that is known as the windpipe. They looks like that windpipe. That from there they have a similarity between the windpipe. That is why they have given this. And if you see these cells, they are very thick and they are dead in nature. That means they will never further divide, and they allows the water to move from one, that means to the bottom, to the upper part of the plant. And the xylem parenchyma, it is having cytoplasm and nucleus, and these xylem parenchyma will help for the storage of food. And in between xylem parenchyma and the vessel, we will be having xylem fibers. They are very fiber. Parenchyma, sclerenchyma, xylem sclerenchyma, we can call like that also. They are responsible for the protection. These are the main things. And if you see the phloem, this phloem is made up of 4, that is sieve tube, companion cells, phloem fibers, and phloem parenchyma. Sieve means something which we are using to separate dirt from the sand in the construction site, that is known as sieve. And companion cells means the cells that is surrounded or near to the sieve tube, they are known as the companion cells. Then we will be having phloem fibers, and we have the phloem parenchyma. And if you see this sieve tubes, these sieve tubes are perforated. Perforated means they are having holes inside, had very minute holes. They are not very big. And I like then when we are comparing with the xylem, xylem is having one peculiar function. Phloem is having one peculiar. Xylem can transport water and minerals in one direction only, that is bottom to the top. But phloem is not like that. Phloem is bidirectional, that is xylem is unidirectional and phloem is bidirectional. That means they can transport water and food material also, plus prepared food materials from the leaf to the other parts of the plant. And when we see this phloem, there is one more thing is very interesting, that is, in phloem, apart from phloem sclerenchyma, that is phloem fibers, all other are living. Fibers are non-living and all others are living. Fibers are only for protection, and others are for the movement of water and prepared food materials from one place to another. So by this, there are some questions are given in your book. Name the types of simple tissues where the apical meristems are found, that means to the tip of the shoot and to the tip of the root, both. Which tissues are made up of by the husk of the coconut, where you can see the fibers, it is known as sclerenchyma. What are the constituents of phloem? So these questions you can write in your book. And remember one thing, all the diagrams are important. Please draw the diagram also. And I have attached notes. Inside the notes I have given what is the difference between xylem and phloem, what are the difference between simple permanent tissue and the complex permanent tissue. Both are given. Please go through that. If there is any doubt, please reply to me with or write under wherever I am posting this video. So it is a very small video, very easy to understand. Go through that and let me come and study it very properly, and read this area, this particular part tissue 2 to 3 times for your understanding. And the next class we will go to animal tissues, which is much little bit lengthier and important as compared to the plant. Thank you.